Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with
Dr. Jessie Mahoney
and Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are here to help you learn to pause and be present, awaken your breath, and harness the ripple effects of mindfulness for radiant health.
We get you. We know you. We are you.
We have both been successful on the surface, yet struggling underneath. We have both had cluttered brains, been overwhelmed, and exhausted.
We're healers who have found solutions and want to share them with you.
Join us here to discover a better way.
Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast. Today, we are going to share an episode about peace and equanimity. A reminder that nothing in any of our episodes should be construed as medical advice.
Our intention for today is to send a lot of loving kindness to the world, and that we, as co-hosts of the Mindful Healers podcast, are called to record and share this episode. This particular perspective, this is our loving response.
We hope that while listening, you recognize that physicians especially, but also many other humans in the world tend to be over-responsible and over-empathetic in challenging times. And that this comes at a cost to our own peace, equanimity, health, and wellness. Takeaways from today's episode are that, of course, you are upset. And it is important to be intentional and responsive in tumultuous times and to not abandon your own health and well-being.
We felt quite called to record this episode. In reality, at any time in the world, whether it be close by or all the way on the other side of the world, something is happening or has happened that exemplifies the worst sides of humanity, whether it be demonstrations of hatred and othering, all the way to the taking of innocent lives. So normalizing that, of course, these events bring up very uncomfortable emotions like fear and anxiety, shame, guilt, anger, and that tendency for over-responsibility. And yet, through all of those uncomfortable emotions, they can become catalysts to enable us as human beings to show the best sides of us. Like love, compassion, connection, understanding, to name a few.
And peace.
And of course, peace. When the world events that are troubling and traumatizing are occurring, these are inevitable. And they create divisiveness and polarization so quickly. Even more further othering. This us versus them mentality is quickly what the polarization escalates. And we also can recognize that this othering, this us versus them mentality actually stems from our fundamental building blocks as humans, that we all can fall back on that binary worldview of this us versus them with binary judgments, because this is quick and efficient. And this is what our brains are really trained to do. And it's also very protective, but it is coming from a lens of scarcity and one that is driven by fear.
Can I just interject? You mentioned that it's inevitable. And I noticed immediately resistance. And I just wonder if anybody else felt that. And to notice that that's, of course, as you mentioned, reactive and a reaction. And my thought is like, it's not inevitable. And I want to resist reality about that. And so that just, because it felt such like a human visceral response that I could not control, I felt called to share it. And I think to just acknowledge with compassion that, of course, we don't want it to be inevitable. And of course, our first reaction would be to resist the reality that it is inevitable. And if it feels triggering for you, which apparently it did for me, I didn't know that that was going to happen, that it's a bit of sort of self-compassion and softness. And maybe you change it to say, it seems inevitable. Throughout history, it's repeated itself. Like, you could use a different phrase. And I think one of the key things that we're going to talk about today is choosing your response. And so to me, it even comes down to these tiny words. And as I'm flip-flopping about the inevitable, I'm like, yes, it feels good that it is inevitable because it's not that something hasn't gone wrong. And inevitable reminds me a bit of the acceptance, and like we feel like we're giving up, or we're just resigning ourselves to terrible things in the world. And so I just wanted to bring up that word, and what you also mentioned, which was showing up, responding rather than reacting. And so our initial reaction is going to be us versus them. And that maybe if we pause and respond, what's going to be the healthiest response for everyone in the world, which of course is time dependent on what's happening in each moment.
I appreciate you being honest in your visceral reaction and sharing that. And I think it just goes to show that this episode is rather difficult for us to record on multiple levels. And the way that we got ourselves to have the courage, frankly, to go ahead and push record and share this with all of you is that what disservice would we be doing if we withheld some sort of potentially helpful option as a response? And so that has been kind of my driving impetus in attempting to put this out and to hopefully help in some way. So I want to also acknowledge that regardless of whether or not we like it, humans are all somehow interconnected. And just the fact that we are all human beings living in this moment in time, however tumultuous it is, together, we are all sharing space on this earth. And I want to let everyone also know that, again, this recording of this episode is out of love. This is our loving response. We are not trying to dissuade you from pursuing your own aligned, chosen response. So if shouting your opinions, reactions, and responses from the rooftops and affirming one side or the other is in alignment for you, go for it. And good for you for being able to express yourself in that aligned way.
And that was one of the key messages that we wanted to share, is that everyone gets to have their own relationship to events happening in the world. And though we often see there's a right or wrong, and that may change over time as well, I think that showing up judging of how others relate to what's going on is a disservice to everyone. And we also very much often show up judging ourselves for our own response. Is it adequate? Or have we shown enough empathy? Have we carried enough of what's going on? Are we paying enough attention? And so my invitation here is to show up with intention rather than reactivity and rather than judgment. And so when I choose an intention, it's really, how do you want to show up? And we actually know that even the process of setting an intention directs your brain towards something, And if we don't direct it towards anything, we tend to just react negatively and focus on the negative. And when terrible things are happening in the world, that usually exacerbates our anxiety, fear, overwhelm, impacts our health and our sleep and our ability to be present with family and patients and other things in our lives. And so the invitation here is to choose how you want to show up, with what energy you want to bring to it, and being very clear about what of these events is yours to hold. And that's going to be different for different people. There isn't a better or worse way to hold what's happening. To also focus on what's in your control. And as I often say, what's in your control is what you do, what you say, and how you think and feel about what others do, and then the tone and energy with which you do all of it. And so focusing on something that is in your control, because many of us feel like most of this is out of our control, and that makes us feel worse. We have no choice, we have no agency, but we do get to choose our response. We do get to choose how much media, social media, we partake in. We do get to choose how we want to respond, as you mentioned, screaming from the rooftops, or feeling sad, or having animated dinner conversations with young people. We get to choose how we treat our friends and our colleagues. And so that is something that is within our control. And I think even just connecting with that idea can be incredibly grounding and lead to more peace and equanimity. In my mind, and I think the reason that we chose peace and equanimity as this episode is that from a place of peace and equanimity, we can respond in ways that our future self will likely be proud of. And so to remember that hard and suffering, which many of us have been taught in the medical culture is better, may not be helpful here in terms of taking on a lot of pain and anguish about what's going on. Again, it depends on you, and it also depends on the moment that we're in, and that's going to change. And part of your intention is choosing what you pay attention to. And Shauna Shapiro often talks about not just choosing what you pay attention to in terms of news and media, et cetera, but also the attitude of that intention. So do you approach it grounded? Do you approach it from a peaceful spot? Do you approach it from a loving spot, or a responsive spot, or a present spot? The other one that I wanted to mention is a curated spot. I think sometimes we think we can't curate our relationship with all of this. And yet my thought would be that if you are mindful, if you are coming from a more equanimous, calm state, we can curate our experience of this so that we can show up for it in a way that we will feel proud, and we can own and feels honest and authentic for us.
Mindfulness for sure allows us to navigate through the rough seas of life. It allows us to see the world as it is, just as it is, even in its most scary and ugly times. And also, sometimes at the same time, its most beautiful and loving times. Mindfulness can help us observe our own emotional and physical phenomena, knowing that we can't entirely rid ourselves as human beings of reactivity. We might be able to train to slow that reaction down. We can notice it. And with mindfulness, we might be able to give ourselves the instilled habit of space to feel the emotions and truly experience the present moment as it is, as upsetting as it might be. And then to be open to choose that grounded, loving response.
Which could, by the way, be anger. Anger could be grounded and loving for you. And so I just want to offer that even offering peace and equanimity is not condoning or resigning or giving up. It's giving yourself some choice and agency so that you can feel more internal peace and equanimity in how you navigate the stormy seas around us.
While social media, the news, our friends, our loved ones, colleagues might expect us or want us to react or respond in a certain way, we alone have ownership over our thoughts, emotions, and actions just like they do. And so I want to just call out whether potential people-pleasing tendencies are arising also as part of our chosen response too. So noticing that if we're quick to judge, even judging ourselves and judging others, as this is how we've been ingrained to be quite binary in our judgments, that's pretty normal for us as human beings. But mindfulness allows us to be more expansive with that lens. It allows us to stay curious about differences in experiences and perspectives, both lived and historical. So I want to invite you to give yourself permission to own your response to aspects of witnessing humanity's suffering, especially in situations when you're not able to control what is immediately happening now or in the future. But what you can manage are those thoughts and noticing the emotions when witnessing. And like you mentioned, Jesse, we can choose where to place our energies, what we attend to, how we intend to show up. So I will share, definitely my heart has been heavy. And I don't know that anything that I say or do in this podcast and beyond will make any of the generations long conflicts in the world on the other side of the country or the world like go away or be better. But and frankly speaking, it's impossible to control the thoughts and actions of other human beings. So with some self-compassion, this is what I have been working on. I've decided to focus on grounding back into my own values, what I believe in, what I prioritize in these tumultuous times. And like you mentioned, what I have been able to control. And usually that is more in my immediate local sphere of influence, in my more immediate geographic location. So I have been, as a result of my practicing this, I think, more aligned response, I have been showing up with more gratitude for the little things, the comforts of life that we so often take for granted, like running water and access to healthcare, for instance. And I have been being very intentional about being much more present for my loved ones and spending time and energy in holding space for myself as those heavy emotions arise. But then also being very clear about what I need to nourish myself. And that incidentally has been more spending time in loving spaces with loved ones, and also allowing myself to engage in fun activities, doing more of what I love to do without guilt. And then also that I can seek to help where I can, but not at the expense of my own well-being. And so I wanted to share with everyone, and we have brought up this phrase before, but I think it really might be helpful in current circumstances. The equanimity phrase from the mindful self-compassion curriculum, typically it's used when we as healers are bearing witness to the suffering, especially of those that we are seeking to heal. So I'm going to share that with all of you in hopes that it might help. Everyone is on their own life journey. I am not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even though I wish I could. Moments like these can be difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can.
That's a very useful mantra. And interestingly, a slight variation of one of the mantras that I use a lot, which is, it should be different, but I can still make a difference. And that difference isn't necessarily controlling others. Your difference is usually how you show up for it. And I think remembering that we can wish for things, and what we can often control is just how we respond to what happens when we wish, and they may turn out not the way we hope, or there may be things happening in the world that we very much wish were never happening. And so I thought we would end the episode talking a bit about some potentially helpful questions to help you show up in alignment in challenging times. And I want to call out before I share them that the answers will be different for each of us. And the answers might be different even for each of us in different moments of world events and conflicts. What might feel like the right answer today might be a very different answer a few days from now. And that trusting ourselves is key in this process. And it was actually something that popped up again as you were speaking, this idea that we often think that not only are we maybe wanting to people please people, but we're not trusting ourselves and our own response. And is it an okay response? And is it adequate? And so these questions in asking yourself is also requires you to trust that you are a good human. You're doing the best you can in this moment with the human brain and heart that you have in this very human world that we live in. And so my invitation is to ask yourself, what would peace do? Or what would a wish for peace do? And this question always begins with you. So what would peace for you do in terms of how you show up? And maybe you can't get to peace, and that's where I would add a wish for peace for yourself, or more peace do. What would peace for the world do? We are going to end this podcast with a loving kindness practice in the mindful moment. And as I ask that question, what would my wish for peace do? It would practice loving kindness. One of the things that is in my control is sending loving kindness out to the world. And a loving kindness meditation brings me a bit more peace. And I can envision that hopefully it's sending loving kindness out into the world wherever it's needed in this moment for health and healing. The other question that I would ask is, what would equanimity or a desire for equanimity do? And maybe for you, equanimity is not possible. So it's just more equanimity, or it may be more buoyancy. And thinking that when bad, awful, scary things are happening to humans in the world, how would you like to respond? Is it buoyantly, more equanimously, or perhaps caring? And so that pivots to a different question. What would caring do? Caring for yourself also. I think we are all exceptional carers, and we are exceptional at thinking about what would caring for others do. But we must also include ourselves if it is to be sustainable and loving and peaceful for ourselves. And what would love do is also my favorite question. And I feel that it applies here once again. Love for you, love for your loved ones, and love for the world. The answer to that question is going to be completely different for each of us, and completely different at different moments in time. And perhaps this is an invitation to start off your day asking the questions that I'm offering here that resonate with you. The other question that I find very grounding in the midst of a sea of ungrounding situations is to ask myself what my future self will wish I had done. My future self who feels proud of how she showed up today. I often will get very keen, wise advice that is more peaceful and equanimous and responsive rather than reactive. And while some of these questions may not work for you, I'm hoping that one or more of them do work for you. Remembering that the intent of these questions is to help you focus on how you want to respond and what is in your control. And also to encourage you not to abandon your own well-being and health as you worry for humanity and our future. That one of the primary things that is in our control is how well we take care of ourselves. And so this is an encouragement to notice what you want to do with regards to that as you move forward.
Thank you so much for listening and for sharing this episode. If it resonates, we hope that it can help others respond in times of challenge and difficulty with more peace and equanimity. Please stay on after the sound of the singing bowl for our mindful moment offering.
As always, if you want to declutter your mind, be more present, and start truly living your one wild and precious life, come find us at the mindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Work with one of us.
Work with both of us.
Start or uplevel your mindfulness practice.
Discover how mindful coaching can change your life.
Or even better, do both as part of our Mindful Healers programs and retreats. You can find links to find out more about our programs and join our communities at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Reach out and get started on your journey to a life better lived today.
The content of this podcast is not meant to be medical or life advice. If you choose to participate in our mindful moments, please do so safely. Welcome to this mindful moment offering. I invite you to sit in a position of comfort and close eyes if it's safe for you to do so. Inviting you to bring hands to heart, one atop the other. Noticing the gentle sensation of the hands atop the heart, those points of contact being connections. And as you're ready, bringing to your mind's eye a loved one. It could be a family member, a pet, something that you unconditionally love, a being, and sending loving and kind intentions to this loved one. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. And sending gratitude to your loved one for being part of this practice. Next, choosing someone who's rather neutral in your life, perhaps the male person or a cashier at a store, a receptionist, someone that is in your life but doesn't hold too much attachment or disdain, and wishing those same loving and kind intentions to this person. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. And thanking that neutral person for being part of this practice, bringing up in your mind's eye someone that causes some discomfort, maybe not the human being that causes the most discomfort in your life, but someone that causes some mild discomfort or disagreement. And sending those same loving and kind intentions to that person, and noticing any resistance that arises, and giving yourself permission to choose, but also believing that this person is also wishing and hoping for these loving and kind intentions. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be free from harm. And thanking this person for being part of this practice. Next, bringing to your mind's eye everyone that you have just sent loving and kind intentions to, the person that causes some difficulty, the neutral person, and a loved one, but this time including yourself in this intention for loving and kindness. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. and holding on to that small grouping, expanding those loving and kind intentions to all the people that are around you in the building that you're in or in the immediate location that you find yourself sitting in right now, even if they're strangers, spreading those loving and kind intentions to everyone that's currently in this town, in the county, in the state, the neighboring states, the country, the continent, perhaps envisioning a gossamer, an ethereal gossamer of loving and kind intentions that's slowly spreading from you all across the world. Covering the world like a loving blanket of warmth and kindness. And also sending extra loving and kind intentions to parts of the world where you are witnessing to have an especially large amount of suffering, including yourself in these loving and kind intentions for the world. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be free from harm. And leaving that gentle gossamer blanket of unconditional love and warmth for the world, coming back to ourselves and sending those same loving and kind intentions for ourselves, recognizing that we're doing the best that we can in this moment. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be free from harm. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be free from harm. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be free from harm. And as you're ready, bringing your attention back to the hands atop heart, perhaps gently pushing in a little to circulate some extra oxytocin, our feel-good hormone. Noticing what's arising for you now after sending all of those loving and kind intentions to so many. And when you're ready, gently placing the hands back into your lap, blinking open eyes, letting the light back in. Hoping that you can access this loving kindness practice whenever you are witnessing suffering. May this be a helpful response for you. Thanks so much for practicing with me.